Welcome everybody to Reyes Podcast, and I am delighted to have here with me State Senator-elect Martín Quezada.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Ruben.
Thank you, thank you. So this is the premier video podcast for Reyes Podcast, and I invited my friend over, somebody who I've known for many years. We went to law school together to kind of talk about what's in store for us here in Arizona in the next couple of years. You know, I think a lot of people were surprised by the November 4th election, the turnout statewide, nationwide, and you as a state senator. Give some of us folks who maybe aren't so in tune with the whole process and maybe the politics that happen, you know, within the chambers. What can we expect?
Well, I think we're looking at a very ugly next couple of years in the state legislature at the state level here in Arizona. The results of this turnout, because it was so historically low, and it was historically low, we've seen a very extreme element of Arizona that did turn out to vote, that have dominated the political victories that took place here in the state. In districts, in legislative districts that were Republican majority, those districts were dominated by conservative members that were elected. So what we have now is we have a legislature. Well, I'll start with statewide offices. We have statewide offices that were dominated by Republicans. Not a single Democrat won a statewide office here in Arizona, and those members or those politicians that did win those offices, in some cases, caused great concern. A couple of them that rise to the top of my mind immediately are our Secretary of State race and our Superintendent of Public Instruction. We ran a very qualified, a very great Latino candidate for office, statewide office here in Arizona, for the Superintendent of Public Instruction. And this was an individual who was not a politician. He was not a very partisan person. He was educated. He was dynamic. He was smart. He was brilliant. He had a vision about what he wanted to do with that office, and he wanted nothing more than to improve the quality of public education in Arizona. Who lost to a person who was coming purely from a partisan perspective, who had only one vision and one goal in that office, and that was to eliminate the Common Core. A very misguided person who has now taken control of the Department of Education in Arizona, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out. In the Secretary of State's office, we've got a person who was elected, again, whose qualifications fell far below that of her Democratic opponent, who does not have a vision, who doesn't have a real clear understanding of our electoral system and elections as a process in Arizona, who is now running elections in Arizona in that office. Those were two offices where I think the qualifications of one of the candidates that lost were far superior to those that ended up winning. In the other offices, you can make an argument that it was more of a philosophical differentiation, and the conservative philosophy won. And even though I may not agree with that philosophy, you can make an argument that it's just purely philosophical, and that as even though our philosophies differ, their qualifications were still there. But
Right.
Those two offices in particular, I think, raised some huge concerns for me.
So, I mean, and I'll be honest, as an independent here in Arizona, who pretty much voted Democrat this election, I was trying to figure out why was, you know, in particular the Latino vote so depressed. The enthusiasm, I think, wasn't there. And obviously we're just kind of guessing here. What are some of the things you think might have not helped in terms of bringing on the excitement, the fire? And I'll say this because I believe the conservative base, the no Obama, you know, they were riled. They were just waiting to cast that in my mind a referendum ballot or something. But on the other side, you know, what do you think played into that? Why do you think so many people stayed home this election, considering we had, you know, great candidate David Garcia, you know, who I was just shocked. Yeah, shocked.
I was too. You know, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, I think one, we are in a midterm election. Every midterm election, when there's not a presidential candidate running, turnout is going to be lower. It's a guarantee. People just don't pay attention as much when there's not somebody at the top of the ticket, that president running for office. We always have lower turnout. So that's one factor. As far as the Latino vote, there's a couple of different factors. One, I think Latinos actually do outperform their counterparts in our electorate. They do outperform them. They do vote at a greater percentage than their Anglo or African American counterparts. But still, the turnout in general was low. So although we outperformed, and we typically outperform over the last 3-4 election cycles, we have outperformed other ethnicities. Turnout in general was so low, and because the turnout was low, it's a result of a couple of different things. One, you've got this disconnect with what's happening in the president's office right now, and what's happening in Congress. There's no immigration reform taking place right now, and people are frustrated by that. The president announcing he wasn't going to take any executive action, he was delaying that executive action. That frustrated people. I think it turned a lot of people off. They decided not to participate, and I think that hurt us.
Yeah.
You've got a lack of candidates that were speaking to the Latino electorate. I think turned voters off. There was not people that were riling them up and getting them excited about, these are candidates that are gonna fight for my community as a Latino, and we've seen that far too often, especially from both parties. Who one party seems to be attacking the Latino community, another party that just doesn't seem to be acknowledging them at all, acknowledging their existence at all.
Good or bad, right?
Yeah. So it's a problem that nobody is speaking to this community. And I think the third aspect is the Latino community is young. We are the youngest ethnicity of all in the United States, and especially here in Arizona. And young people in general of any ethnicity, they don't vote.
Yeah.
People don't start to vote and develop that voting pattern until they get older. And when everyone says that wave is coming, it is coming. I do believe it is, because we are outperforming our counterparts now. But because we are so young, it's not a matter of being Latino or African American or Anglo. It's just a matter of being young. And as we grow, that percentages are going to continue to rise. I do believe that, and I think we are actually already seeing that, but it's just not making a difference because we're so young right now.
And I guess there's a lot of talk, nationally speaking, in terms of Texas going purple because of the Latino population, and the possibility of Arizona going purple. And I think a lot of people are kind of hoping to see some evidence of that, I think, this election cycle. But I think I do agree with you, the fact that it's a midterm. We don't have anybody at the top of the ticket who people could really vote for, nationally speaking, right, to kind of bring on that fire. And also, the immigration question, which I think definitely really, as an immigration attorney, my clients and a lot of people were pretty upset.
Absolutely.
And I think I was
as well
too.
They should be.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Really
And I was too. Just kind of like, we're not going to make this political, and then it seemed to be just a very overtly political kind of move on the president's part. But I understand there would have been an answer, no right answer. Had he done something and this would have been the result, fingers would have been pointed. Why did he do it?
Yeah.
And the fact that he did it well. So I don't think there were any easy answers. But you have kind of taken your seat, in the House of Representatives and now in the state Senate. I think from a very grassroots level, in a sense, like you've had to really work hard, knock on doors, get to know who your constituents are. You were a member of a school board. You really do put yourself out there. And on top of that, you're also the founding, member of your practice. So, putting all these different hats on, as a representative, you had distinct challenges coming from a minor perspective. What do you think is going to happen now in the state Senate? What kind of bills can we expect to see? What kind of fights can we expect to see? And maybe what kind of legislation do you think might be coming out, from the legislative branch?
And from the legislature, like I said, it's the numbers have actually stayed exactly the same. In the Senate, there will again be 17 Democrats, 17 Republicans, 13 Democrats. In the House, there will be 36 Republicans and 24 Democrats. So those ratios have not changed, and the exact makeup will stay the same. However, the makeup of those members that are elected, even though the numbers are the same, their philosophies are much different. We have turned a very sharp turn to the right in the state. The Senate is much more conservative than it was the last 2 years. The House will be much more conservative than it was in the last 2 years as well. Because of that, we can expect to see a lot of those divisive bills we can expect they're going to be heard, and they're going to be giving They're going to be given committee hearings. They're all going to be put forth. You're going to see another version of Senate Bill 1062. You're going to see a tax on the immigrant population.
So, and for those of us who might not be very familiar with this, with the Senate, so 1062?
1062 was referred to as the Protection of Religious Freedoms Act. And what it was, basically it was a bill that would have allowed business owners to deny services, to legally deny services to people that they felt did not fit within their religious beliefs. So it was basically, that's a fancy way of saying it was an attack on the LGBT community. People did not want to serve the LGBT community, and so they passed a bill, or they tried to pass a bill that would allow them to do that legally. Fortunately, last year the governor vetoed that bill. It was under extreme pressure from the business community and from all over the nation, who threatened to pull the Super Bowl out of Arizona had that bill been signed. So she did veto it. But there have already been rumors that bill's coming right back.
Wow.
Especially after the Supreme Court's ruling in a lot of these gay marriage cases as well. And the way those rulings have been going all over the country in different courts of appeals, and how they've been falling, and how in Arizona here too. Gay marriage is now allowed.
Yay,
and
yay,
so,
equality.
And so there's going to be, I think there's definitely going to be a backlash against that, and we can expect to see those types of bills come through next year.
Wow. Do you think the Democrats in the Senate or the House have a plan? Is there something? Are things going to be done differently? Because like you said, numbers the same. And so minority status and what you can do in a minority limits you in terms of really what you can actually block or stop. So what for those of us who might not be aware, this podcast is intended to kind of reach out through all, young and old alike, I hope. What do you think the strategy is going to be next couple of years, next session?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a couple of different things. I mean, one, we're absolutely going to be playing defense in a lot of ways. I mean, because of our numbers, because we are in the minority, we're not going to be able to advance our own agenda. We're going to have to be fighting back against an agenda that's being pushed from the other side. So smart defense is always is the number one goal. We want to be smart, fight smarter, not harder. And so that's going to be the main thing. We're going to try to leverage coalitions with the business community, leverage coalitions with moderate Republicans, and leverage coalitions with other all of our groups that make up Arizona, and try to unite together and stand strong and say that these things are unacceptable in Arizona. That started to happen last year, and that's why I think bills like Senate Bill 1062 were vetoed, was because it wasn't just Democrats fighting it, it wasn't just the LGBT fighting it, it wasn't just Latinos fighting it, it was all of us together that stood up and said this hurts all of us, not just one particular group. So leveraging those coalitions is going to be one of the most important things. Number two, I think we need to be a lot smarter about our messaging. Because that's going to be really the battle. As a member of the minority party in Arizona, we need to put out a better message to the voters in preparation for 2016. We need to tell our voters when we are fighting these bad bills, why is this bad? Why does it hurt our state? Why does it hurt you as a voter? And why should you go the opposite way when you are casting your vote in 2016? We haven't always been good about that. We haven't always been good about getting our message out, because a lot of times people wonder, what is the Democrat message? What is the progressive message? What is the message of equality? And it's not always a very clear statement, and we need to solidify that and communicate it much more effectively.
And about the message, and I think that kind of rings true on a lot of levels, because I think a lot of people this election cycle weren't even quite sure. A lot of people were definitely against. It seems like everybody was against something, but what am I for? What am I really fighting for?
Exactly.
I played a big part of that. What do you think? And I'm talking about yourself. You fought the good fight. You've gotten here. You had a primary challenge. You overcame that, and that was a pretty bruising fight. That was pretty dirty. I mean,
it's a tough race,
right? From my perspective. I would definitely say a tough race. And then you went on to the general and you won that handily, so it seems. And so in that regard, congratulations. But so what can we say to everybody here? What is Martín Quezada's? What is your personal mission? What is it like what's the pro message? What do we got to take from you being a senator here in the House in the Senate?
I think there's three things that I have fought for over the last 3 years since I've been in office, and that I always say these are positive messages that affect not just Democrats, not just Latinos, but all Arizonans that are positive. Number one is supporting public education. I mean, we do have to support public education. We have to be pro-public education. A lot of candidates will say they are pro-education, but very few will be specific and say pro-public education.
Right.
I do believe in public education. I believe that our schools, our public schools, are the centers of our communities. Right. That's the bedrock upon which the entire neighborhood is formed upon, is that public school. And that's where the large majority of our community sends their kids. The large majority of our kids choose to send their kids to public schools. When we don't invest in our public schools, we are setting ourselves up for failure. And then at the end of the day, when you look back at it from an ethnic perspective, the majority of our kids in public schools right now are Latinos. So there's a reason why there's been a pushback away from public education and more of a focus on education in general,
right.
Charter schools, private schools, because those schools now are servicing a different clientele
right.
than are the public schools. The public schools are our kids. That's where our kids are going to be at. That's where our kids are going to be serviced, and that's where the large majority of the future is going to be coming from, out of those public schools. Number two is, as one of my specific issues. It is a very specific issue. Has been voting rights. I mean, absolutely, we've seen the low voter turnout in this past election, but a lot of that is not just a result of midterm elections, not just a result of messaging, but a lot of it is a direct result of obstacles that have been placed in front of voters by a conservative legislature that wants to prevent people from voting. There has been a huge myth about voter fraud and a huge myth about preventing voter fraud that is out there. The fact is that it simply does not exist. There is not a voter fraud problem in Arizona. There's not a voter fraud problem in the United States of America. It just
right.
simply is a non-existent problem. So when people enact measures like voter IDs, when they enact measures that purge people off of the permanent early voter list, when they enact measures that make it more difficult to vote, even if it's a small little barrier, those barriers add up and they prevent people from voting. And the reason for that is because when more people participate, the message, the policies that get enacted, they start to move more towards the center.
Right.
And they start
right.
to move away from the extreme, which is where they are now.
Right.
And the people that get elected will move more towards the center, and it will be more reflective of what the community actually wants. The reason
right.
why our electorate or our legislature is so disconnected from our electorate right now is because only a small percentage of the electorate is electing them.
Right.
And they absolutely do not represent the large majority of the public. That's by design. It's not by accident.
Right.
And so that's something that I want to fight on. And then lastly, is just protecting everyone's constitutional rights. We've seen those, and that's something that we can say. I am pro-equality. Right. I am for equality for you, regardless of your age, regardless of your sex, regardless of your ability or disability, regardless of your race, regardless of your sexuality. We are all equals. We are all welcome. We are all part of our community, and we should fight for that type of equality. And there are lots of ways in which we are not equal in Arizona right now. LGBT community is one of the ones that faces the brunt of it every day. There is
right.
still not equality for our LGBT community. And those are things that we need to fight for and say that equality is anything less than equality is unacceptable.
And I think that's like a fundamental shift that just took place in the past, I mean, definitely within the last decade, where, it was one thing to say, I am pro-traditional marriage, or, and back then it was simply, gays are evil, or gays are this, and there's been, I think, a seismic shift nationally and locally in terms of, I don't think it's very representative of this very right, I don't know if it's Tea Party or just ultra-conservative Republican who I think are coming in, Republicans who are coming in office, but within the biz community, within the international community, that we need to be pro-equality, pro-LGBT. It's not a bad word. It's there are people just like you and me, and they want to have families, they want to have lives, and they want to be happy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, do you think the business community, totally, we're just kind of like looking at the crystal ball, is gonna fight back? Because I mean, talking about some of these bills, some of the things that unfortunately Arizona has passed or put forth has put us in a really bad light nationally. I mean, we've been, to some extent, the laughingstock On a lot of issues.
On a lot of issues.
Right. Do you think we're going to see more of that, especially if the business community is just kind of like fed up? If they get, I almost feel like there is this level of like fed up. How much more do we need to do or say?
I'm really hopeful for that, and I think to an extent we're already seeing some of that. We saw a lot of very harmful immigration measures that were being pushed through by Russell Pierce back when he was the Senate president, that were stopped because the business community stepped up and said, this is out of control, we've gone too far. We saw the business community step up to the plate and say Senate Bill 1062 is unacceptable, it's not good for Arizona, it's not good for business. And we saw the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, endorse David Garcia. I mean,
right.
For a statewide candidate for superintendent of public instruction. I mean, that's a message the business community is sending that says education is important to the business community, and that's the start of a larger conversation that I think is going to take place at the legislature, where I hope the business community will step up to the plate. They've already started it, but I think they need to put more pressure and say that we need to invest in our schools. We need to invest in us in order for us to be successful, because at the end of the day, their workforce comes from our community, and if our community is not educated, not able to perform those jobs that they need, those high-tech jobs, they will take their business elsewhere.
That's right.
And that's going to be important, and I think that they're starting to express that now, and I hope they will continue to express that in stronger terms in the future.
I also think a lot of times people, especially Americans, kind of have this idea where it's myopic in that it's Arizona competing against Texas, competing against California, but it's literally, I think now it's Arizona competing against the world.
Absolutely.
India, China. I mean, this is way beyond our borders, and if we kind of keep looking in the sense like we're not preparing our students in the areas of math and science and computer technology, then we will get left behind. We'll be the consumers and no longer the purveyors or the producers of this amazing technology. And this is something I want to bring up a topic with you, and it's personal to me, in the sense that I think a lot of people out there too would definitely disagree, or definitely agree, in that, okay, the election is over, people are in office for the next 2 years, I can turn off politics for the next 2 years, but really that is the wrong attitude to take. Like we need to start now in terms of supporting candidates and people in office that we would like to see continue in office, to continue promoting policies that are agreeable to our points of view. In this case, voting rights and equality and access to education, and providing a meaningful public education experience that is well funded, that is holistic and competitive, globally speaking. So I am, John Q. consumer. What do I do? How do I get involved? What if I like a candidate, or I don't want to be a part of a partisan effort? I don't want to join the Democratic Party. I don't want to join the Republican Party. But you know what? I'm listening to this podcast, and it's like, I like Martín. And there might be other people who sit next to me in the coming weeks and months. I want to help this person. I want to do something. And I think this is where a lot of people are at a complete loss.
Right.
Do I vote with my feet? Do I vote with my dollars? Do I vote with my time? Is it all? Maybe give us some. And I'll ask you to break it down this way: baby steps.
Yeah.
And maybe feet in the pool and all in. What are some real practical suggestions if you want to give an email out or something for people to contact you afterwards? And of course, we're going to put this up on our website, and we'll be advertising this on a couple of magazines here locally in Phoenix, Arizona. So hopefully we'll get some feedback on this. But what would you suggest? For those of us who aren't sure what we could be doing now.
Well, I think there's a great baby step that everyone can take right now. We are living in an age right now where all the information, everything that's taking place at the Capitol is at your fingertips. You can log on to Twitter, you can log on to Facebook and know exactly what's going on. Before, all these conversations were being held in smoke-filled rooms in some office somewhere, and nobody knew about it. But now it's all happening, and it's all right there at a moment's notice. Log on to Twitter, follow your local state representative, your state senator, follow your politicians and see what they're up to. And communicate with them, engage with them on Twitter. Engage with them on Facebook, and you will get into some interesting conversations there. I have a Twitter account, and I try to keep it updated. Whenever something's going on at the Capitol, I let my followers know about it. Whenever something good is going on, whenever there's information I think that they need to know about, I will tweet it out. And it's something that you don't have to do anything other than follow that person on Twitter and learn more about what's actually happening, what they are actually working on, and what they're actually all about.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will campaign and say one thing, and once they get into office, they will do the exact opposite.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. So you can learn a lot about what your candidate is all about, what your elected official is all about, by paying attention to them over these next 2 years when they aren't on your ballot. So follow them. Get on Twitter. Get on Facebook, and just follow them. I would say 90% of the legislators now have a Twitter account.
Wow.
90% of them have a Facebook page that you can follow. Most of us have websites as well. I know I do. I've got Twitter, I've got Facebook, I've got a website, I've got email, I've got a phone. You can reach out to me in any way at all of those and engage with me. Let me know what your concerns are. Let me know what you would like to see happen, and we can start that discussion.
And I'm going to ask you, so what's your Twitter handle?
Twitter is at
that right?
at Rep Quezada 29, REPQUEZADA 29.
Okay. And then your Facebook page is?
Facebook page is facebook.com/Quezada for AZ House.
Okay, fantastic. And so you can find him there on Twitter and Facebook. And I will say this, not everybody that I've had the pleasure of speaking with, whether in or out of office, is as approachable as Senator Quezada. So if you're out there, look, sometimes, and I say this as an attorney, where people hear attorney and then they think that I'm no longer accessible to them, or I am somebody beyond asking a question. Ask, engage, be assertive and aggressive in terms of having the confidence within yourself to approach and ask those questions. I think a lot of us appreciate the fact that you're coming to us with whatever the concern of the question is, and I think being a public servant, that's expected. That's kind of So what's the middle step? What's the next thing that people can do?
So the next step, I mean, once you start following people and start getting a little bit of a working knowledge about what they do and what they work on, the next step is getting involved in what they do. We will communicate about an upcoming hearing. There's going to be, like I talked about, the next version of Senate Bill 1062. That will have a public hearing at the Capitol where people can come in and testify and say, I like this or I don't like this. You should vote yes or you should vote no. We will send invites and tell people, come to this hearing and tell us what you think about it. The more public that shows up, the more pressure is on us to vote a certain way. So that's a great opportunity to be involved at that ground level where you can actually have an impact on the decisions that are made. And then the next step after that, getting involved, kind of sending an email or even making a call, even if you can't physically be there. Call your elected officials. Let them know, I want you to vote no on this bill. We get very few of those calls, very few of those emails.
Really?
From actual constituents who are paying attention kind of randomly, just out there out of the blue. We get a lot from people that are members of specific interest groups that are paying attention to a specific issue.
Right.
But very, very few from your average Joe citizen who's paying attention, watching the news, or reading an article online and wanting to express his opinion on a bill. That happens maybe once, twice a year.
Wow.
And that's it. So that's a way that you can get involved. And lastly, if you want to go all in, if you find someone that's working, an elected official that's doing a good job, and you think they should have more influence, help them out. Help them sign up to work on their campaign, sign up to work on their efforts, and we can use all the help we can get. Because even though the campaign technically is over, we campaign full time every day from this point forward. I will still go out there knocking on doors, talking to voters for the next 2 years, even though I'm not up for election again for another 2 years, because we still need to keep people engaged. We still need to remind them of who we are and why we need their support, and we will need people to help us do that, because I represent a district of 220,000 people. So it's a large district, and there's no way I could ever reach each one of them on my own.
Right. But what if I'm in high school? What if I can't vote yet? I mean, should I still get involved? Can I still is it okay?
Absolutely. Actually, the high school ones are the best ones. Those are our best workers.
Really?
Because when you're in high school, you've got all the energy, and your knees aren't bad yet. So you can and that's true. Our volunteers, it's the youth that really carry all of these political campaigns. Every political campaign that's been run this year, Republican or Democrat, from a legislative office all the way up to the governor's office, the people, the feet on the ground were young people. They were high school students, they were college students. that we're out there encouraging others to vote. Even if you can't, even if you're an undocumented immigrant, if you can't vote yourself, you can convince somebody else to vote who can.
Right.
So we take all of those volunteers, all of those are helpers, all of those are family, and all of those people are welcome in our efforts, because we need all that help we can get.
That's awesome, and I guess you can do it one of two ways. You can, obviously follow Senator-elect Quezada on Twitter. You can find him on Facebook. You can contact him directly. You can also contact me via my Facebook, Law Officer Runel Reyes, or reach out to me via reyespodcast.com, and let us know. And if you're not sure, you can call us, and we can get you in touch with Senator-elect Quezada, and maybe you want to volunteer some time. I'll tell you this. Part of the reason for doing this podcast and here with my friend is because I think I fall in line with most people, where we have a lot of desire, and then what happens? Well, family happens, or work happens, or school happens, and then next thing you know, a month goes by, 2 months go by, and you didn't get done what you'd like to get done. But I think you have to take a first step, and so making a commitment and following through as best as you can. Everybody, I think, understands that life happens, but it's not letting it go. It's not putting it aside, or not saying, because it didn't happen this time, I'm not going to do it ever. No. It means I'm going to do better next time. It means I'm going to try and be better next time. And, that goes with school, trying to apply for college, scholarship, everything. Don't give up if you don't quite get where you want to go the first time. Just try and do better. I want to thank you for your time and your graciousness for stopping by. And
I'm happy to be here. So all your viewers know, man, Ruben's a great guy, a great lawyer.
Thank you.
I would bend over backwards to help you out in any way I can.
Thank you. You and me both. I feel very much the same way about you. And if you have any questions, comments, you can find us on YouTube. You can leave them underneath this podcast. And again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Cool, bro.
Thank you.